Hey guys, Steve here. Today we're going to be talking about what to do in a destroyer. Got a game in the Akatsuki, Japanese Tier 6 destroyer. Hellsinger, he's basically Tanaka, but with twist and track traded out for the Torp reload in slot 3. So we're going to kind of go through what roles the destroyers have in World of Warships Legends, and this game actually does a fairly good job of illustrating all of them, or at least four main ones. So, first one I want to talk about is spotting. How the vision mechanics of this game work are relatively complicated. I have a beginner's guide video on my beginner's playlist, which that's probably the most recommended from my perspective on the beginner's guide videos. If you haven't seen that, go ahead and check that one out. It's still, they've tweaked the vision system minorly since that was made, but it's still probably about 96% accurate, so good information there. Basically what we want to do though is pull forward to give our team the ability to see the enemy, because as a destroyer I have very good concealment, so it's hard for the enemy to see me. I can get in a position to see their ships, such as battleships, cruisers, and that'll allow my teammates to see this ship on the map on their screen. Then they can shoot at them. I actually get XP credits, all that stuff. It boosts my score anytime a ship that I'm spotting for my teammates gets shot. So keep that in mind. You're going to help your score. You're going to help your team. It's probably the most important role for destroyers, and it's a role that you have throughout the game. There we get some preemptive torps down. I was just kind of throwing them in the direction. Basically what the thinking was, they had two ships spotted. Usually there's 3 ships that spawn per side, so I was hoping to get some torps down, maybe catch that destroyer unaware. And then you see we turn away without really firing a shot. Since I was deploying the smoke, yeah, I could have maybe fired 1 or 2 salvos at that Akatsuki. But overall, basically we were just trying to get in there, spot, and then kind of put a little bit of pressure on the cap, which is another one of the roles that destroyers have. But spotting, I mean, it's the most nerve-wracking thing for me as a player when I'm not playing destroyers is seeing a destroyer hiding behind an island waiting for some ship to sail by 10 minutes later in some sort of ambush situation. You cannot be doing that. You cannot be sitting in the back behind your enemy ship. You got to be the most forward. As the best concealment on your team in terms of classes, that means you have to be in the forward position. If you're not, your team's not getting information about the enemy. They're not being able to shoot at them. They're not going to be able to react to what they're doing, so on and so forth. So spotting is the number one role for destroyers. And then getting into the cap contention here, you can see we kind of abandoned the sea early on, being outnumbered 3-2 with the battleship that was sailing backwards. I was not really in a position to contest that cap. They aggressively pushed forward to capture sea. But as a destroyer, you have the mobility, you have, again, the concealment, and you kind of have the tools. The torps help contest caps because you can kind of throw them out like we've been doing, and that puts pressure on any ships that are moving into the cap. So you need to be, especially in domination mode, not quite as important in capture the base in most situations, but domination mode, you got to really be focusing on getting those caps switched over. In ranked, which is a special form of domination mode, almost every game is 1 on score, and then regular domination mode game like we have here, the majority of them still are 1 on score. Trying to eliminate the team in domination mode will usually lose you the game because the enemy will have time to focus on actually securing the caps and then winning based on the accrual of points over time. So, you know, those are 2 of the main roles very early on. Again, spotting for your team, scouting the enemy's position, and then contesting the caps here. We conceded C in this game, at least early on, but we're still putting pressure on it. Now that we have support ships that are moving over here, and it's not a 1v3 type of situation or 1.5v3 situation, now we want to continue to put pressure on this cap here. I don't want to let them capture it as a red team and then never try and flip it, because that's going to be, you know, it's roughly 40 points, I think, per minute. So if the enemy gets a cap early and you never try and contest it, then you're just giving them a lot of points. That's going to be hard to overcome here. Anyway, now in this game, we've got the Gneisno down. We got the Akatsuki down, which is kind of moving into part 3. But we'll get back into spotting mode here. Rather than immediately jamming into C here and trying to flip it, we knew the Fiji was over here, so I'm trying to get him outside my blue circle so he can't see me, but I want to keep him detected as much as possible. That's going to, again, allow these battleships behind me to start shooting at him. And you can see, if I'm not in a position to see him, which now I can see him, he can't see me. Those ships behind me can't see him either. They can't really shoot him. He can just sit on the cap and maintain the accrual of points over time. But because we moved beyond his ability to see us, and now we're kind of moving towards the cap, we can keep him lit up for our team. He's going to start taking some damage if our team can hit him. If they can't, it's not really my fault. But, we're kind of doing two things at one time here. We're putting pressure on the cap. We're keeping the guy lit. We're using our spotting. So, emphasis on the first 2 points. Those are the most two roles for destroyers. Spotting and then cap contention in domination mode game. In capture the base mode game, putting pressure on the base is a strategic option. It should not usually be the main one. Usually defending your base is the better option. Anyway, the third role I wanted to talk about, we've kind of seen a little bit. We'll see it more. And that is dealing with other DDs. Now, depending on what kind of destroyer you're in, you can be primarily, the main threat for other destroyers. Or if you're in a Japanese torpedo boat like we're in here, you might be thinking to yourself, well, I'm the worst ship in the game to deal with enemy DDs. You saw earlier, we already got some shots in on the Akatsuki. We helped spot him for our team, and our other ships were able to shoot at him as well. So, depending on your ship, you may or may not be primarily responsible for killing them, but you need to be able to help your team find them by using your vision, your spotting ability. Get them lit up for your team. Hopefully they'll shoot at them when you spot them, and then get some shots in for yourself. Or if you can keep track of them, put some torps in his direction, you might be able to catch them that way. But completely ignoring them is not an option. As a destroyer, you are situated to deal with other destroyers. It's one of the things that you can do well in the game. So this is why I'm always harping on destroyers that zoom off to get around the back line and torp battleships, because you've ignored all three of your main roles. I mean, the three main roles in order of importance: spotting, cap contention, dealing with other DDs. That's all skipped to deal torpedo damage, which I would put fourth in terms of importance. So if you're inverting kind of the pyramid and doing the least important role as your main focus, then you're really kind of playing the class incorrectly, and you're doing more harm for your team than you are doing good. Whereas if you're focusing on spotting, that'll allow your cruisers to get behind islands, shoot at other ships undetected, because they have a line of sight via you to those ships. They'll be lit up on your screen. The cruiser will not be lit up on the enemy's screen. They can fire for free. Same thing with battleships. Battleships have a horrible time. They can get outspotted by cruisers and destroyers. So if they don't have anyone spotting for them, they're at a massive disadvantage. They need to have people, keeping an eye out for them. Here we get some torps down for the Ismail because he's going at a pretty straight line. Then we go back to counter destroyer. We got a low health Fubuki here. What are we going to do? Take some shots, get rid of them. Japanese destroyers that do not use their guns annoy the hell out of me. And there's another full health Fubuki. We're going to take some shots at him while we got the smoke deployed. Now, he does have 3 support ships, and the previous destroyer had 4 support ships. So, being this close to the bulk of the enemy, I don't want to be opening fire at these ships without a way to disengage. My way to disengage here is the smoke. I also have the option to get behind some of these islands here. But when we have the option to disengage, there's no reason for us to not take those shots. We killed the one Fubuki. We've already damaged that other Fubuki down to, looks like he's about half health. Now we're getting some torp hits in. And you can see here, yeah, we've launched torps before. We didn't hit any. But we're halfway through the game with our first torp hit. A lot of newer destroyer players might be thinking, wow, what a horrible destroyer game. He hasn't been hitting torps. No, we've been doing everything right so far, at least in my opinion. Hitting targets with torps, it's kind of the bonus, the icing on the cake for the class. If you can get the torp damage, fine. But I mean, my torp accuracy is like 10, 11, 12%, something like that. It's extremely low. So launching torps is a random process. Now I launch my torps much more casually and much more with a zoning mentality than a lot of people do, which I'm not going to get too far into in this video. But I'm not going for accuracy for my torps basically, which is fine. But there's still kind of a randomized thing where if the enemy's, pretty good at the game, they're going to have a pretty easy time dodging torps in most situations, unless you really get them in some sort of situation where they can't really react to them properly. But usually you're just going to get the torps out there and hope for the best, But that should be the least important function in your mind as a destroyer player, in my mind. Focus on spotting, focus on controlling those caps, focus on dealing with other destroyers. You do those three things only without ever firing a torp, and you can have excellent, high-scoring games as destroyers. You're going to be getting a lot of XP from spotting damage. You're going to get a lot of XP from flipping caps, and you're going to get a lot of XP from shooting those destroyers, because killing destroyers or removing HP from destroyers is much more valuable in terms of XP credits than removing HP from battleships. It's calculated as a percentage of the ship's hit points. So if I do 7,000 damage to a Fubuki and that's over half his health, whereas if I do 7,000 damage to a Fuso and that's, 15% of his health or whatever it is, much more valuable for me, much more valuable for my team, because we're getting rid of the eyes and the ears, and it's just better all around. So destroyers should be the number one priority. Here the Fubuki, for some reason, decided to charge me, and we got rid of him. So we've had a hand in getting rid of all three of the enemy destroyers as a torpedo boat Akatsuki, a ship that a lot of people would never fire their guns at another destroyer. We've gotten rid of all three of them, or at least massively contributed to getting rid of all three of them. And that's basically what you need to be doing. Kind of the other thing you need to realize as a destroyer player, if you like those big juicy games, they're going to get easier as the time goes on in the game to achieve, because if you get rid of the destroyers, if you kind of have been spotting well and your team's been eliminating the cruisers and destroyers on the enemy team, then when the battleships on the enemy team are all alone, they're undefended, they have no way to spot anything, they're no hope whatsoever, their situation's dire, that's when torping them is really easy. They're just kind of in panic mode at the end. So yeah, I mean, this game, again, I picked this one because it's damage-wise, not bad, but not massively impressive. We're not setting world records here. But score-wise, we're going to get over 1,000 points compared to the second-place guy in our team. This is an interesting situation in this game here, though. And this just goes to show you how important capturing these points and controlling them is. Because score-wise, if we lose that ship, it's going to be roughly tied, and we're probably going to lose that ship. So finally I make the decision to get over here and go to A. If I can get on to A before they can get on to C, then we pretty much guarantee the win. So I was analyzing the game situation, what do I got to do, and then we finally made the call, got to get over here, flip A. That'll allow them to flip one of the caps, and we'll still remain roughly tied, but because we're going to have two caps to their one, we'll go ahead and keep accruing more points by the end of the game, and we basically seal the win right here. So you can see there, we did lose that ship, and we're basically tied right now. They actually had a brief lead, I think, but because we get on this cap before they can get on another cap, then the game is effectively won right here, whether they know it or not. So we had a hand in flipping two caps, we had a hand in killing three destroyers, did a lot of spotting damage, and then got a couple torp hits here and there. And this, not to toot my own horn, that's not the purpose of this, but this was like a really good, all-around, well-played destroyer game, in my opinion. Really poor destroyer games are often the ones with massive damage, where the destroyers kind of snuck through the back line, and they're just trying to torp the battleships that are just kind of hanging out in the back, not doing a lot. They're kind of out of position. And here I am as a destroyer player. I'm just going for damage. And I think, wow, I killed 3 battleships from 70,000 health to 0. I got a 210k damage game here. And my team lost. What happened? Well, you didn't do your role. I guarantee you, if that's the main focus, you're going to be losing more games as a destroyer than you're going to be doing winning the game. So focus on kind of what the roles are in the order of importance that I laid out here, and then you're going to have a lot more success as a destroyer player. So that's going to do it for that one, guys. Hope you did enjoy it. If you did, please hit the thumbs up. If you're new to the channel, you should consider subscribing. There's always more World of Warships coming all the time. Questions, comments, leave them below. I do love to hear from you. And we'll see y'all later. All right, peace.